Okay, we're on. Hi, Miss Sember. How are you today?
Hi, Christy. I'm good. How are you?
I'm great. I am so glad that you agreed to do this interview with me because you are such a beautiful person inside and out, and you have so many different skill sets, and your knowledge of women is very extensive. So having you here to talk to us today, specifically about yoga, but hopefully we can chat about your other, mom skills as well, and talk to us about fitness, because the month
Awesome.
of January, our Healthy Mom University topic is fitness and movement. And I think so many of us want so badly to move and to be fit, but we have all these barriers that seem to just be constant challenges to actually getting to where we want to be in terms of our fitness levels. So hopefully you can shed some light on and create some inspiration for us.
Hopefully. Thank you for having me.
Well, first off, can you just tell us about yourself and who you are and what you do?
Sure. I do have several skills. I'm a certified school teacher first and spent 11 years teaching in elementary schools, and then went on to get my master's degree in educational leadership. And somewhere along that process became a wife and a mom, and that's who I really feel it is most important to me, that I hold those roles the highest. So during that time, again, I became a doula and a birth assistant, and then eventually got my yoga teacher training and became a yoga instructor. So first, I'm mom and wife, and then doula, yoga teacher, and anything else within. I teach childbirth education. So I would say educator. I'm an educator, first and foremost, to everybody that I come across, which is pretty cool.
Absolutely.
Powerful.
Well, it's definitely your gift. Education is your gift. So talk to us about how you came into yoga, how you decided that you wanted to become a certified yoga instructor.
Sure. It's actually my husband's fault. So after I had my son, my husband looked at me one day and he said, "Sember, you need a hobby." And I said, okay. So I found a yoga teacher who was teaching donation classes on the beach, and I started going pretty religiously, and I fell in love with how I felt after. Initially, I found it because I was looking for fitness, for strength and stretch, and then somewhere in the first couple months of practicing pretty religiously, I found that my head felt a lot better. I felt calmer and more available for my kids and for my family, and that really resonated with me. So years later, I found the yoga garden. I found Loren, who's the owner of the yoga garden, and she was urging me to do the teacher training, and it came up several times. And the first time she asked, I said no, I was too busy teaching in the schools and too much going on. My kids were too little. And then the second time, I was during my master's degree and wasn't a good time. And the third time I said, you know what, I'm going to do it. And my husband probably regrets telling me to have a hobby when I said I was going to do teacher training. But I did that, graduated last December, and I've been teaching since at the yoga garden. And I feel so blessed to have found this journey. And my life path went in so many different twists and turns. And now I feel very confident the way that it's going currently. And yoga is a big part of it. So helping me find that peace and the confidence to know that I was making good choices.
Yeah, absolutely. When you hit that sweet spot in your life, when you know that, okay, this is what I'm supposed to be doing for the rest of my life, everything just falls into place,
It does. Yep. And doing the training really opened the door to all of the other things that I'm passionate about now, being a doula and assisting in birth and teaching childbirth ed. They all kind of fell into place at the same time. So timing really was divine. The universe was speaking to me, and finally I had to listen, and I'm glad I did.
So the question is, as you're talking about your work experience as an educator, and then as a childbirth educator and a doula, and now a yoga instructor, you have a very strong knowledge and understanding of the female body and how it works instinctually and naturally. So what advice can you give to moms if they wanted to start yoga what types of benefits can they expect to see physically, emotionally, spiritually from starting a practice?
I think the biggest thing to keep in mind is that yoga was, the lineage of yoga, the practice was developed to move the body to prepare yourself for stillness. And a lot of times people expect yoga to be an exercise. And so that's a nice way to start it. But I feel like then once you start allowing the benefits to sink in, where you're feeling this union between the breath, the mind, and the body, then you are taking it beyond your physical body, and it's really speaking to your soul and supporting you spiritually. No matter what your spiritual beliefs are, somehow it has a way of sinking in and doing what needs to be done. I would say for somebody starting out, it could be overwhelming to find a class or a teacher or even a type of practice that speaks to you. And so the best advice I can give is to go into it with an understanding that you're going to have to give yourself a grace period to find a path within the yoga practice as a whole that really suits you. So people go into it looking for different things, and once you can determine what it is you're looking for, it's easier to find that, a teacher that speaks to you, or a place, a sacred space, even if it's just in your home. But to begin, I would say trying it as a home practice, even if it's just sitting on a mat for 5 minutes and being still and allowing that to sink in, that might be a nice place for people to start. If you're looking for a teacher, going to a studio and starting with maybe a gentle class or a beginner class to understand the knowledge, the alignment, and the basis behind it really can help, instead of just going into it for fitness. Fitness yoga is definitely can be beneficial, but I think for moms, it's better to take the time to find yourself again, because we give ourselves to our family first. So it really needs to be a self-care practice and be seen that way.
Yes, absolutely. And I can definitely relate with that in my own yoga practice. And yoga, people might not think that it's something that you could potentially injure yourself if you're not doing it correctly.
Absolutely.
But can you talk a little bit about that?
Sure, absolutely. So alignment-based yoga is easier to come by when you're moving slowly. So fitness-based yoga, power yogas, or really intense vinyasa flows, those types of classes aren't going to focus so much on the alignment of the body. Well, your anatomy is very different from mine, and so telling somebody, okay, place your hands directly underneath your shoulders, that might work for you, but it doesn't work for me. So being taught to feel the joints of the body and told, well, if this doesn't feel right in your shoulders, then maybe try this. That will help save you from a lot of injury. And if you're in a class that's fast-paced or doesn't focus on alignment, then the possibility for injury is much higher. And so like any other exercise, yoga is repetitive movement. So we're doing a lot of the same movements over and over. And if they're done over and over without proper alignment, you're opening yourself up for injury. So it's really important, especially in the shoulder joint, to have proper alignment and find a teacher that focuses on that. And not everybody does. It's okay, but to start out, it's important to really feel it in your body with a teacher that teaches you how to align the body in a way that feels stable for you. Because again, everybody's anatomy is different.
Right. Yeah, exactly. And, you know, the shoulders, the knees, the ankles, you know, in my own practice, those are all things that I've had to pay really strong attention to, because, you know, I want to do a lotus, but which is crossing your legs up like that, but my knees just don't like going that way.
No, and it took a long time probably in your practice as well to say, and for me also, this shape doesn't fit my body, and that's okay. Not every shape, not every yoga posture fits everybody, and that's, I think, a hard part for a lot of people, to be okay with the fact that what your teacher's doing might not be something that you can do comfortably, and it's okay. But again, it's that union of listening to the body, putting your ego aside, and allowing your body to talk to you and providing a place for that. So yeah, being safe not just in the shoulders or the knees, but in every joint, your wrists, your pelvis, everywhere. Really important.
Yeah. And even the neck too, right? Because there's
Absolutely,
headstands
yes.
that you can do, and sometimes
Absolutely.
you might want to hurry up and try to get your headstand, but if you're not, if you don't
Yes.
know what you're doing, you could seriously injure your neck too. So,
Absolutely. And I think there's, you know, the other misconception in yoga is that inversions like headstand or handstands, those are a signal that you're advanced in your practice, where really those postures have nothing to do with how advanced your practice is. The advancement of your practice comes when you can put the ego aside and do what feels good for you. That's yoga. Breathing and feeling the body, not being upside down.
Yeah. So let's talk about the connection between the breathing and the postures. That is a really important component of yoga, right? It's not just doing the movements, but it's the breath as well. So talk about the importance of that and the benefits.
Absolutely. So the word yoga actually means union and discipline. So it's this combination of uniting the breath, the body, and the mind, and being disciplined to practice. It's not going to happen overnight. I don't know if you've ever sat to meditate and been really distracted by your thoughts and then being able to say, today's not the day that this meditation is going to work for me. Well, your yoga practice is the same. So it's important to remember it is a practice, but the breath, the idea behind the breath and the movement, that's what vinyasa means, linking breath to movement. And the idea with the breath is that on the inhale, we create space so that on the exhale, we can move into the space. So if you're, say, not following your breath, you're inhaling maybe where you should be exhaling, then you're not creating the space for your body to soften into the muscles or hug the muscles to the bones to create a stable position for the shape that you're trying to create. So yes, that is extremely important, but even more important is allowing your body and your breath to talk to each other, to find harmony, and not so much how the motion of the body links to the breath, but when you provide the space to let them talk.
Yeah, absolutely. That is such an important part. I know I've got kids and dogs, and this is mom life right here.
Absolutely.
But hello, Supi. So what I was thinking when you were talking about the importance of the breath and the movements and how that goes together and coming in tune to our bodies and being okay if we have limitations and not saying that we can never do something, but that I can't do it today, but that doesn't mean I won't be able to do it tomorrow or the next day. Right. But it's a practice. You just keep doing it, right? You keep doing it. And eventually you find that you get to where you want to be, right?
Right. Yep.
So with yoga, it's not like you're just going to go from A to being a super yogi, right?
Correct.
Even you as an instructor, you're still learning, you're still practicing, you're still growing.
Absolutely. Absolutely. There's a lot of shapes that my body doesn't make, and some days are better than others. I've been definitely frustrated or felt roadblock in my practice many times where I feel like, why was I able to do this last time I got on my mat, but today I'm not? And then that starts to take away from the goal of being on the mat, being present. And the idea of being present on the mat is just accepting the body for what it's doing in the moment. And in yoga philosophy, we call that ahimsa, or non-judgment, not judging where we are in our practice and not being attached to what we did the last time we were there, and not looking ahead and having expectation about where we need to be. Instead, just focusing on the process. And again, it's a practice. It's not going to happen overnight. And there's lots of postures that I've been working on for years that just haven't come yet, and it's okay. And I have to, like anybody else, exercise can be frustrating because you get annoyed that you're not progressing the way you want to, but that doesn't really serve anybody, especially on the mat.
Yeah. So that's what I love about yoga practice is the grace, right? You have to, you are forced to give yourself grace because, you know, yoga can be very challenging, very, very challenging. There's of course different variations of yoga, like you've described, you know, gentle flow, and then there's restorative, which you can talk about as well. Okay, baby, are you okay? Mommy will fix you up in just a minute. But the whole idea of giving yourself grace and
Mm-hmm.
letting go of that self-critical thought process that so many of us have that playing in our head over and over again about being, you know, about our personal disappointments and our personal flaws. And, you know, yoga is so much about accepting who you are and how God created you,
Mm-hmm.
and giving yourself grace, but yet being willing to change and shift and move forward, right?
Yes, absolutely. But in addition to that, all of that, absolutely, but also not rushing your process, knowing that the grace might not come right away. And we're really hard on ourselves, and that translates to our practice, especially in the initial days. So people that are coming to the mat for the first time, or for the first time in a long time, especially moms, we are really hard on what our body looks like or feels like, or what we used to be able to do. But when I teach prenatal yoga or postnatal yoga, I always remind moms to take a moment to accept and acknowledge what you do as a woman. All of the things that you do. We create life. That's pretty cool.
Yeah.
So our body changes completely, and we have to allow the time to accept that change, and then let that just be. And it sounds easy, right? Just let it go. But it takes time. And that's, I think, the hardest part of stepping onto the mat, is knowing that the first time it's going to be challenging, maybe in your body, but probably more mentally. And giving, again, that word is so important, grace, giving yourself grace, and understanding and knowing, especially if you're a new mom, that you just made a life, and that's pretty cool. And so if nothing else, feel gratitude for that.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, we forget that, but we grow human beings.
Yes.
Inside of
superhumans.
Yes. We build humans.
Yeah.
So,
yeah.
And that takes a tremendous amount of energy and resources from our body. And we like you said, we have to give ourselves credit for that.
Absolutely.
You know, because
yes.
Hello. But going back to what you said about mental fitness, right? That yoga is so much about mental fitness, and that's really the core of any type of fitness. I think is your mind has to go into a positive mindset and allow your body to give yourself that grace, and to allow yourself to, you know, to show your weaknesses at first, because whenever you're starting a fitness program, you're going to show your weaknesses full on, right?
Yes.
So,
yes.
And not to act tough, and not to act like you can persevere and push and then end up injuring yourself. Right?
Yes.
So I love that yoga does that. It's not just about the physical fitness aspect, it's the mental and the emotional as well. Uh-oh, did you get stuck? Okay. You want to sit on my lap? Okay. So you've already kind of talked about the difference between fitness yoga and what I like to call authentic yoga, you know? And does it really matter when you're first starting out? Does it really matter which direction you go? You've kind of already touched base on some of this, but.
I personally, yes, I think so. And I think the reason is because, again, the fitness yoga might not be focused on the mental aspect. It might not be focused on the alignment in the body. And authentic yoga, or yoga that allows you to really create a sacred space for yourself, that will provide you not only with a better mental fitness, but a better understanding about what your body should feel like in each shape. I feel really strongly about finding a practice that teaches you the basics so that you have a strong foundation in your practice to protect your body, but also knowing that when you are not thinking about, you know, if my shoulder hurts when I do this shape, or if my hips hurt when I do this shape, if you're worrying about that, then you're really not practicing yoga. And so the authentic yoga gives you a space, or creates a sacred space where you can really dive into your spiritual wellness and your mental wellness. And because you're not focusing physically on necessarily pain or hurt or discomfort. So yes, I think that it does matter when you're starting out, finding a practice that gives you the basics and gives you time to really feel confident in your foundational postures so that you can advance your practice, not just physically, but spiritually as well.
Absolutely. Good. So let's talk about how moms can start to incorporate more of an authentic yoga practice into their daily life. What would be your best recommendations?
It can be really daunting to think about, how am I going to make time for this, right? Moms are so busy doing everything, it feels like, for everybody all the time. So I think the first step is to acknowledge that yoga is self-care. And self-care is really important as a mom. If we don't, my favorite quote ever that my mom says to me is, nothing works unless you do. So if you're not giving time for yourself, then you're not really giving your full self to your family. So I think that's the first step. That being said, getting on the mat for the first time could look like 5 minutes of just laying there and being still. It could look like looking on YouTube and finding a beginner yoga practice, feeling comfortable being on the mat. If you really want to dive into it, going to a studio for a gentle or a beginner or even restorative to start, that's a really nice way to integrate yourself into the feeling of being in a studio. But studios can also be a little bit off-putting if it's something that's new to you. So being careful to choose a studio that speaks to you is another thing that I would recommend. Doing research and finding the studios around you and trying. Most studios have a trial package where you can try a class or a couple classes for less than what a normal class might cost, and give yourself a try to get into the practice. But sometimes being at home and doing something on YouTube gives you the confidence that you need to step into a studio. But there are lots of days in my own personal practice where I'm not moving at all. I lay on my mat and I enjoy the stillness, and that's yoga. Really feeling that you're doing something for yourself is most important.
Yes. Okay, so we were talking about yoga practice with kids. And I love how you say that when you're practicing at home to, let your kids participate, let your kids play. You can always set rules depending, like with my kids, I kind of have a no mat policy. So when mommy's on the mat, nobody else is on the mat.
That's good. I like that.
But it works for me. But, if you want to have your kids on your mat with you and doing postures together, doing some mommy and me yoga, that's pretty fabulous too, right? Because you're setting that amazing example for your kids to be fit under whatever circumstance, right?
Yeah. So, I think it's good for them too, because they're learning how to be still and to be present, which I can really appreciate, and I think it's good for them to see.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, to take that time and not, because we're always in a rush. We're always like, let's go here. Oh my God, gotta go there, and let's go dinner, and
always.
It's always nonstop. So to teach them that, okay, this is our time to just settle down and be still and just be in the moment. That's a fabulous example of mental fitness and mindfulness, especially as well. So absolutely. All right, my last question for you, okay? I want to know your top 5. Give me your top 5 favorite yoga poses. Go.
Top 5 favorite. Any chest opener, so anything that opens the heart, whether it's cactus arms or supported fish, anything that creates broadness across the front of the body. I think in our society we do a lot of hunching over, so it does the opposite. I really enjoy. I really like the Warrior series, so Warrior 1, 2, and 3. They feel really powerful. So is that 3 poses or 1?
Well, that's kind of a series, right? So we'll count that as 1.
We'll count it as 1. I am starting to explore a little bit more in my practice arm balances. So crow and flying pigeon and things like that. They're not my strongest postures, but I feel really good after I do them. because I feel really strong and like I'm doing something that is challenging me and I'm working through it. Those are postures that every time I try, I feel a little bit defeated at first. So I think that's a good lesson as a yoga teacher to get past that. And forward folds, particularly seated forward folds. Opening the back and the hamstrings, working all the way down the back side of the legs, and sitting a lot in our society. We need that time to do the opposite again. So those are my favorites, but I really like them all. My least favorite are back bends. I don't like doing back bends.
Yes, which are, talk about, you know, a full body workout in 5 seconds. Try holding a back bend for 5 deep breaths, you know?
Yes, that's definitely a challenge. Stimulates the nervous system. So it's good for you, but it's definitely personally a challenge for me. So I tend to avoid them in my personal practice, but I know that means that I need them more.
Right, I know. I try to do them at least once in my practice.
Good for you.
But what you said about the nervous system, let's just chat about that for just a second, because how many of us moms are suffering from anxiety and our nerves are so shot, and we're so hyper vigilant, right? We're in hyper vigilant mom mode all the time. Our nervous system's shot.
Yep.
You know, talk to us about how yoga can really help calm the nervous system, reset it.
Sure. So most of us live in the fight or flight mode all the time. Where we're constantly releasing the stress hormones and living with this challenge in our bodies to function, even though we're not supposed to function more than 3% of our lives in the fight or flight portion of our brain and our nervous system.
Big trouble.
We all are. So most of us spend a lot of our day in fight or flight. So yoga prepares us to rest and digest, which is the other set of the nervous system. And so when we rest and digest, we're giving our body permission to do just that, to allow the nervous system to go on hold, to chill out a little bit and allow for endorphins and oxytocin to be released rather than catecholamines and cortisol, which are the stress hormones. And that being said, when we give ourselves that time, we're kind of flushing out this fight or flight system that we live in all the time. And hopefully the idea is that if we can keep practicing being in rest and digest, then hopefully we can switch so that we're living more of our days resting and digesting rather than running and fleeing. So it definitely helps with that. But again, you have to be ready to do it. It doesn't just happen.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's connected to our immune system. You know, like everything, our hormones, all of those are interconnected. Our digestive system, all of that,
everything
on our nervous system. So shifting into that rest and digest mode is so important for us moms, right? So
especially for moms.
Yoga can be incredibly beneficial in that aspect as well.
Yes, it can be. And really restorative yoga is probably best to start with that, to give yourself the time, not a lot of movement and really just resting. So
okay. So just give us a quick definition of what restorative yoga is.
Sure. So restorative yoga is, the basis is that you're seeking as little sensation as possible, not just in your body, but stimulus wise. So sounds, visually, and touch. So when you practice restorative yoga, typically you're using a lot of props, so blankets or blocks or bolsters to support the body so that the muscles aren't feeling sensation. And that's the idea, is so that you can really just let the breath move and do its thing and not have any outside stimulus distracting you from what the body is trying to do. So restorative is that way, in comparison to like yin yoga, which is not a lot of movement, but the idea there is to seek sensation to help create flexibility in the connective tissue. So both of those are good options, but different in that one, you're seeking sensation, and one, you're seeking no sensation. So, so both good places to start. Yeah.
So it sounds like there are many, many different types of yoga, and maybe to do a little research before you get started to figure out what direction you want to head in, or go to a studio and try out a few different classes and a few different instructors to see
Absolutely.
what's the best fit for you, because like you said, we're all so different. So yeah. Okay. All right, Sember, please talk to us about where we can find you if we want to take one of your yoga classes.
Sure. The easiest way is to look at the Yoga Garden website, yogagardenflorida.com. We have 2 locations, one on Pineapple in downtown O'Galley and the other on US 1 inside the Adventure HQ building. I teach Tuesday and Thursday nights at 7:15 and Saturday mornings and Friday mornings. So looking at the site for the schedule is the easiest way to find me. But all of the classes at the Yoga Garden.
Okay, great. And then if we wanted to book a private yoga session with you, talk to us about that as well.
You can find me on the lactation wellness site and book through there, or you can contact me directly. I think I have my contact on the lactation and wellness site also. So you can contact me directly for private sessions, or find me on Facebook or Instagram. So
okay.
Any of those ways.
You do not just, regular yoga classes, but you also do prenatal and postpartum yoga. Correct. As well.
Yes. Yep, I sure do. And those are all done privately. I don't do group prenatal or postnatal.
Okay. And then talk to us about, frog in my throat, talk to us about your other services that you offer.
Sure. So in addition to teaching private yoga and group sessions at the Yoga Garden, I'm also a doula, and I teach childbirth ed. All of those are also individual basis. Doula service includes a lot, so it's hard to kind of put into a few words. And then for childbirth ed, I teach hypnobirthing, which is a really meditative way of coming into birth and having a really good understanding of what happens physiologically in your body, and connecting again physiologically and mentally to create a peaceful birth. So those are in addition to doing yoga.
Yeah, the hypnobirthing is amazing. If you're listening and you don't know anything about hypnobirthing and you're expecting a baby, definitely get in touch with Sember, look into it. It's very fascinating because people in tribal communities, they don't have a lot of the labor issues like we do, right, Sember?
That's correct.
In fact, some women don't even experience a tremendous amount of pain like we do here, and that's because of how relaxed they are and how, they've been trained and taught to, allow their body to do its thing during labor.
Exactly right. So the idea behind hypnobirthing is that we are all capable of experiencing childbirth in a peaceful and calm way. And it takes work and practice and time, but it's definitely worth looking into because it's a whole new way of coming into childbirth than what we're taught in our society. So it's worth a little bit of research.
Awesome. Okay. All right, Sember. Well, I'm going to close and let you go. If you're listening, again, if you want to reach out to Sember, she's on our website. Her bio is there as well. You can learn all about her and her contact info. BrevardLactationWellness.com. You can take her classes at the Yoga Garden and at Adventure HQ. Go into the Yoga Garden's website for that schedule, right?
Yes, ma'am.
And if you are expecting and you want to have some hypnobirthing classes or you're looking for a doula, definitely reach out to her too, because she's definitely sought after, and she's a beautiful person to have at your side when you're giving birth.
Thanks.
Yeah, you're welcome. Thank you so much for being here with me and talking to us. I'm going to have a fun afternoon editing this video.
You sure are.
All right. Thank you, Sember.